everybody. Welcome to Outside the Box with Tony Vaughn here on Xpnsion Network. In case you're wondering, you're like last week, she had really short hair. So I'm growing out my hair and it's going through a very awkward stage. So I went and got me this cute wig, which if anybody who's known me for more than 2 years knows that this is exactly what my hair used to look like when it was long. So I just wanted to get that out of the way so that you weren't like going, what the hell's going on? So hair doesn't grow that fast. No, it does not. So anyway, today's guest is Margo Mateas. She is a scientifically verified healer, a divine clairvoyant, a investigative journalist, and the amazing author, of this book called Freed by the Light that talks about how the supernatural affects our lives. And I am reading it and loving it. So we're going to talk to her about that too. So it is one of 2 Christmas editions, hence the background, because I love Christmas. So let's get talking with Margo. Okay, everybody, here is this fabulous woman I told you about just a second ago. Margo, thank you so much for agreeing to be here with me today.
Oh, it's wonderful to be here with you, Tony. Thanks for inviting me.
So my first question always is, how did this start with you? I'm always curious to know, I mean, because I can only imagine you're a kid maybe, and because a lot of people have started when they were very young, and how you, if you don't have parents or a community around you of people that are aware of this kind of thing, if it wasn't maybe something genetic that was passed on and you have a grandmother or a mom or somebody to talk to, or dad even, how do you even deal with that? So, so tell us how all of these gifts kind of came to you.
Sure. It's interesting because I always felt connected to things that were greater than myself that I didn't understand, like most kids. And I have to say that for early childhood, I was mostly aware of dark negative energies around me as a child, which many children are. And this is a topic that has to come up for parents to understand that when your kid cries at a certain time in the night and says, "Daddy, there's a monster there," there is a monster there. There's some kind of energetic being that we cannot see, but the child can see. And, the dark does come for children because they're innocent and they contain a lot of light.
They're more
So,
open, yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. And so I was really tormented as a child, spiritually. And again, kids don't talk to adults about this. It's just instinctive. I have a client whose 11-year-old was like, "Tell Margo there's beings coming through my walls, and that there's one here and there's one there, and they've been bothering me and they're laughing and they're taunting me." And his dad is an aware man. And so, he did call me and I did check, and there was a portal in his room, which is much more common than we want to think it is.
Wow.
And, so we closed those portals and put up protections and barriers and stuff. And so that, the child's fine. He slept great and everything's fine. But he was amazing because he had a dad who he knew was so aware, would listen to him. And most
Yeah.
of us don't. And it's just an odd thing. It's like universally children just have this knowing that when you're tormented by these unseen forces, that it is your burden alone to carry as a child. I've heard so many stories about that.
Yeah, that's really too bad.
Yeah, so it wasn't until I was older and a teenager when I started to have visions. Well, actually, when I was about 8, the visions started. So I would have premonitory dreams. So that's precognition. So I would dream about something that was going to happen at school or something that's going to happen in my life, and it would happen. And I started noticing that about 8 or 9. And then my stepfather passed away, and then he came to me in my dreams and we hung out, and I understood that that was actually spirit coming to me and talking to me. And then
Okay.
as I got older in my teens, I would have these visions when somebody I knew was in trouble. So I would see a picture of them like in an oval picture frame, like an old-fashioned picture frame, and they
Yeah.
would be crying or they would be upset. And so I would call them and find out that there'd been an accident or somebody was in trouble. One time I was at my desk as a newspaper reporter and I started crying and I wasn't upset. So not understanding myself as an empath, right? We didn't talk about that then. So I scanned my mental banks and I was like, well, it must be my best friend. So I called her in Florida and absolutely she was devastated something had happened. So I think for a young empath, the hardest thing for me was like controlling my third eye because it was always on. If I didn't want somebody in the room with me, I would just send them mental arrows and they would leave.
I was going to ask you if these, premonitions were coming to you, like, when you said when you were 8, like broad daylight, you're sitting in a school classroom and.
No, I have had experiences like that, but those are past life memories. So if you want to bring me back to that, I'd be more than happy to talk about that.
Okay.
But no, this was like, these were in the form of dreams. So I'm glad you asked to clarify that.
Okay.
Yeah, they were dreams.
Okay.
I would have premonitory dreams and then they would come true. And I still do have those. But yeah, so the vision started as a teenager. And then when I hit about 13, I started having these interesting dreams about unseen beings taking me into a laboratory. And I understood that these beings were my friends. And I loved them. I trusted them, but I couldn't see their faces. And they would send me in search of something that was growling. And I had to find this unseen growling thing and contain it, like catch it for him and bring it to him. Isn't that wild? And of course, I didn't tell anybody about these dreams. This was natural. Yeah. Margo.
You're like, that one's staying in the vault. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So the first one I caught in one of those jet dry containers. I don't know if you remember these little tiny, they look like little tiny trash cans. They were for dishwasher detergent.
Oh, yeah.
And so I stuck one of those and I brought it back. Oh, good, Margo, great job. So then I had another dream when I was 14. And this time it was like a big growling thing. And so I found like one of those tall fold up doll houses, the Barbie doll house.
Oh,
that, and you could just turn the latch. And so I stuffed it in there and turned the latch. Good, Margo, right? So,
but what was it?
They were demons. I didn't know that they were training me to catch demons. And so that's really a lot of the work that I do today is like getting rid of entities and attachments that don't belong there. And there's the whole book, Freed by the Light, is all about these very detailed experiences with before and after photos of people and just mind-blowing things that I encountered in this.
And that's what I loved. And I was so excited to get your book. And I had ordered it and it was supposed to be here last week on Thursday, I think. And I'm looking, I'm watching, I'm checking the mailbox. Like, why isn't it here? And I get online, my email, and they're like, hey, sorry, it'll be here the next day or the day after. And I was so disappointed because I was so excited. I've said on the show more than once that I am a paranormal supernatural junkie. Love it. My husband came downstairs the other day to watch the football game, and I had been down there first, so I was watching something on TV, but I paused it, and he comes and he looks at what I was watching, and then he looks at me, and I just said, you expected something different? Like, you know that this is what I like to watch. Anything about ghosts or anything supernatural, I love to watch. So when I got your book, I was like, this is amazing, because this is everything. And let me just show people again. I showed them earlier, but and it's a nice sized book with pictures, as you can see.
330 pages, 101 images.
Okay. But everything in here validated for me because I believe in everything. And, I've been called gullible and, flaky because I just kind of, but I believe everything is possible. And so having you talk about this, like this in the book was so freeing for me, validating for me. And also, you talk in here about how we all have these gifts. Not everybody's necessarily going to be chasing down demons, but everybody has when they decide to tap into it. The clairvoyance and the premonitions and things like that. And when you give examples of those things, have you ever known when the phone rang who it was going to be? And we've all experienced that. Or you think about somebody, even for 30 seconds, that you haven't seen in a long time, and they either show up at the grocery store or they call you or whatever, you know what I mean? So we all kind of have this, and there's always that chicken and egg thing. I always think, did I manifest them, or were they thinking about me and I picked up on it? You know what I mean? Kind of thing, which doesn't really matter, but it's always interesting. So, absolutely. So when you got older, then you knew that these things were happening, but you got into investigative journalism.
Yes, I did.
And it was very earthbound.
Right. I was thinking about this contrast this morning when I got up in anticipation of your questions. And before I was a newspaper reporter, or actually in an interim between newspaper jobs, I was a radio DJ. And I had a satellite booth, and I was a DJ. I was actually a newscaster. I was both of those things at certain points. And
Okay.
so I was in this newscasting booth, which was in a warehouse in Southern California because it was a satellite station. And so I was in there. I had no staff or anybody, just me and the engineer. And I have all my crystals everywhere. The fire department got called once because the incense caught on fire or something.
Oh,
And I'm remembering I was super, super woo-woo, right? Like,
yeah.
going into my late teens and early 20s. And yeah, investigative journalism did kind of pull me out of that, but I've always been that way. And that's why I wrote Freed by the Light, because I wanted to bring my investigative journalism take on it. Because that's the thing. People think, oh, you're a flake. It's not true. Well, I created a book that I personally experienced. Every single story in there is backed up with an affidavit, okay? The
Yeah.
photos are exactly from the people, from their cell phones, never been edited for anything other than contrast, right? To make them show up a little bit better. Because as an investigative journalist, I want to know that things are factual. I want to know that this actually happened. There's documented evidence of it, right? And that's why I wrote this the way I did. So it is really a melding, like you say, of, actual facts, and yet the truth and the reality of the supernatural realm of which we're
Yeah.
all a part. Yeah, so I'm really, really happy to hear that it validated that for you, because that was one of my goals
Oh
for the.
yeah. Well, and I've also talked on the show. I think just even the last episode I did about how the show is called Outside the Box because I want people to know that you don't have to get all woo woo in order to experience the powers within you, whether they be psychically or just your ability to change your thoughts and beliefs and build a more creative life and start to manifest on purpose. And so when I watched the interview with you and you were like, I'm really not all that woo woo. And I was like, oh, I mean, I just love that because people sometimes I think that you have to, and it's not, it's everyday people.
It's
Like I was telling the last guy with tattoos and like, yeah, we go out and we drink an alcoholic beverage and we cuss and we, and stuff like that. And,
right.
and we have kids to raise and bills to pay. And, we're just like everybody else. And you don't have to go to the mountaintop or the cave to find yourself and discover, abilities that you might have and things like that. So
That's
I love how grounded you are. I mean, even the investigative journalist job is as earthbound is in direct proportion to how far out reality, you know what I mean, the things that you've
right,
experienced and stuff like that.
right.
And so I love it because you're both, which brings you in the center, which is where most of us need to be. You
Yeah,
need to be grounded, but you also need to be, you also need to live in the ether some too.
absolutely, because we are spirit and flesh.
Yes.
And part of the understanding of my purpose is that I am a bridge between the spiritual and the mundane, and so that I can present it in a way that everyday people will resonate with and understand that is me. I do that. That's okay to
Yes.
believe in that, because it is part of our experience. It's not
Well, and
separate
how
from us.
is it hard for you to, I, I couldn't imagine, though I'd love to experience it, knowing what you know and experiencing what you've experienced in other realms and on the spiritual side and things like that. How hard or easy is it for you to deal with the mundane, with the day to day, making the car payments and, I mean, just and even everybody, people that you meet in society 99% of the time have no idea about what you do or even that it's possible or whatever. And so I'm sure you have a circle of friends or people in this industry
Yes,
that makes it to where it's not so weird. But
yes.
is it hard to kind of just the mundane thing?
It's really great because I have a wife who deals beautifully with the mundane. So
Oh,
she
so you don't have to.
no, really seriously, because I do pay the bills. I keep track of the money.
Yeah.
That's not in her skill set, but it is in her skill set to get up in the morning and make breakfast and do the dishes and do laundry and
Okay.
be in the physical world, because I am so often literally like off planet, or, I'm always in my head somewhere.
Yeah.
And,
Well, we
God
need
bless her.
partners like that. I mean, and
We
everybody
do.
does. I think that you've got to have one that's you've got one that's like floating up into the sky and the other one's down on earth kind of pulling them, but at the same time that one's pulling the other one up so that you're both kind of, balanced that way. So
Exactly.
yeah,
Exactly.
so that's awesome.
It
So
is.
what are some of the most what are some of the most profound things that you want people to understand? I love what you said about the kids. I think it's,
Yes.
I'm really lucky. I don't recall my kids ever experiencing anything like that where I had to go, no, there's not. When I see movies like that where kids go running, screaming into their parents' room and they're like, oh my gosh, would you relax? It's just your imagination. And they go in the room and they go, see, there's nothing here because they don't see it. And they
Right.
put the kid back in bed and shut the door and turn off the light. And then the kid's just like laying there terrified.
Right, because there is something there that's very threatening and that is
Yeah.
real, absolutely real, even though we can't perceive the the entire prism of light with our eyes, and yet
Yeah.
we know that it's there. We work with it every day. It's all around us, right? We can't see electricity. It's all around us. So the
Yeah.
fact that our visual senses as adults, usually by the age of 6, we started to shut down that psychic portal. So after the age of 6, people tend to not be able to see as much as they used to when they were children. And so usually adults have lost that ability to see and also been enculturated. That's not true. That's woo woo. You'll be laughed at. It's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So kids are left with a tremendous burden that they shouldn't have.
Yeah. So what are some of the other things that you would want people to know and to
Right.
understand, things that might unseen things that are affecting them that they maybe don't realize?
Absolutely. Uh, One of the main things I want people to really understand is that the supernatural is affecting you as much as your physical world is affecting you, if not more. So
Wow.
yes, exactly. So if you can imagine looking around this physical world, everything you see, all the details, the plants, the animals, the feeling of the air on your face, the sun, all these things that go comprise our physical environment here on this planet. There, if you just imagine like another whole world superimposed on that, that's just outside your field of view, that's real. It's happening. So we would be absolutely terrified if we could actually see everything that's out there, but we would also be mystified and dumbstruck by the beauty of the angels and the other beings that are here to help
Because
us
it's
as
not all
well.
bad, right?
No, it's not all bad. Absolutely. No,
Yeah.
absolutely. We have lots and lots of helpers, tremendous helpers and light everywhere. And that's why the book is called Freed by the Light, because the light always wins. Whenever I have to go to battle for anybody, the light always wins. And so, but the thing is, we're not prepared to deal with what's out there, good and bad, right? It's on a spectrum.
Yeah.
And yeah, but I really want people to understand that this is affecting you. It's affecting your life. It's affecting your family. It could be affecting your children, either by them encountering uh, beings from a more global dimension that may be visiting them or contacting them in their dreams, or ETs, or galactic things that may not have their best purpose in mind. There's a whole field of things that are affecting us that we don't understand. And so I wrote the book to say, look, these are some of the things that I've encountered that I absolutely know are real, because here are the photos and the documentation to prove that it happened and it's real.
Yeah.
And start looking for this in your own life. So if some people come to me because they have a run of bad luck that they can't escape. And so you don't go home to your family and think, well, I might have a curse on me. But I've had many people come to me and they do have curses on them. If there's been a sudden upturn in bad luck, if things come out of nowhere. And the thing is, people can feel it. You can
Yeah.
feel it when something's not quite right. Or you can feel it when something higher is calling you inside. You can feel it when your spirit knows, and your spirit's always tuned in. So another thing I want people to really understand is that they have to tune into themselves, and they have to listen as hard as they do in this reality, and sometimes even more.
Yeah. So
Because
where does the law of attraction come into that versus, because if I'm basing what's happening in my life on the law of attraction and I'm having a run of bad luck, I would need to think about what kind of thoughts I've been having, what kind of emotions am I putting out that are that are coming back to me like that. So where does the difference between the
I
law
would
of
say,
attraction and something that's actually attached to you that's causing problems?
yeah, I think the difference with that, first of all, I don't really believe in the law of attraction a whole lot in the
Okay.
way that it's been packaged to us.
Okay.
With this whole brand of positive spirituality, I think that's just a load of hokum. I really do, because I know many, many people who've done everything they were supposed to do in the law of attraction and didn't have pass what they wanted to have pass, right? It didn't work for them. And so the whole premise of something being a law means that it works every time. every time without fail, it works. So we don't
Okay.
go out and change gravity, right?
Right.
Gravity is what it is because it is a universal law, right?
Yes.
So I think it is true that our experiences change as our vibration changes. Yes, absolutely. But along with this fake spirituality of total positivity comes a big danger because we lose ourselves in that process. We blame ourselves in that process. And there's actually been a satanic priest, a former satanic priest named Mark Passio, who has this fabulous series on YouTube called New Age Bullshit.
Oh, wow.
And
Okay.
I love it. It resonated so much with me. And I think I mentioned it in my book. And he actually says, the New Age movement partially was created by the dark to get us to stop looking for the source of our problems. So
Okay.
in other words, in the New Age movement, if we take it the way it's sold to us, I'm 100% responsible for what happens to me. And if I've drawn something in my life, I'm responsible. Well, my book is 330 pages of proven instances when the law of attraction had absolutely nothing to do with what people were experiencing.
So it's not that the law of attraction doesn't exist. It's just that sometimes there are extenuating
There are
circumstances
extenuating.
that has nothing to do with it. That,
Correct.
okay, I
Exactly.
got you.
Exactly.
I
Yes.
had a bout of anxiety and panic attacks that came out of nowhere um, back in 2000, and I remember telling, like, my mom, I was like, "This is not mine. I know
Right.
it's not mine. This doesn't make any sense. That I'm a risk taker. Will pack up everything and move at a moment's notice. Whatever. I'm like, why am I all of a sudden? I don't want to go to the grocery store to buy NyQuil because I want to go to sleep because that's the only time that it's gone, kind of thing. Uh, and I felt like, it was somebody else's crap attached to me.
Exactly. Exactly. Like I said, the spirit knows. The spirit knows. So another thing I want people to take out of the book is to pay attention to how you're feeling, right? If you're working your law of attraction and it's not working consistently, or there's a feeling you can't shake, or something just doesn't feel right, or people will call me and say, I hate to say it, but I feel like somebody's watching me. And
Yeah.
there's a story in the book about a woman that was true. It was her grandpa, and he'd been watching her whole life. So we feel it because we do have that spirit within us. We do have telepathy. We do have all those psychic senses, and they're not just as developed in people. But pay attention to how you're feeling, because if something just doesn't feel off, or if you keep having a feeling like I said, like you're trying to be elevated, or spirits coming to you in a certain way, pay attention to it.
Okay. Did you ever feel, maybe even when you were a kid, when this stuff kind of started happening, that because I kind of feel like people like you that have this so strong within them and are able to impact people's lives the way that you have and stuff, that there was a contract almost written up before you got here
Oh,
that
definitely. Yes.
that this was your purpose.
Yes.
um, do you feel like these dark forces that you saw as a kid, even though you didn't know as a kid that you had maybe had this contract, were trying to suppress that
Yes. And
so
it's
that you
interesting.
could not help people?
Yes, absolutely. And it's interesting you use that word suppress. That's in my book a lot, because when I get inside people's energy centers and I look to see what energies and attachments they have in there, when I encounter them, 99% of the time when I say, why are you here? They literally say it like this: to suppress the light, to
Yeah,
suppress the light.
just
They're
because you
just soldiers.
can.
Yeah, exactly, exactly. And just like our soldiers here on Earth, they're not emotionally invested in what they're doing. They're part of a squad that was sent here
Yeah.
to do very specific things. And so oftentimes it's not personal. It's just part of the thing. Yes, absolutely. Many of us are being suppressed. And what I find often is that the people of a certain age, between 40, maybe in 45 and 70, usually 50, 60, 70, they came in on a wave of souls, and many of which were sort of kidnapped, diverted on their way back to Earth to fulfill their mission, and were put in homes with severe darkness. And that many in my generation and the generation before were heinously abused, and all these things just to suppress the light. So think about it. If you're in a strategic initiative in a war, what do you do with the elite forces? If you can take out the elite forces, if you can keep the Rangers from coming in, right? If you can
Yeah.
starve out a camp, if you can cripple and hold back, right? any way you can, you're going to suppress that war effort, and it's going to be a
Yeah.
strategic advantage. And you're exactly right, Tony. That is exactly what is happening. People's light is being suppressed.
And other than, I mean, I imagine when they suppress the light to a certain degree, obviously that makes them stronger. Does that give them more energy? What's their purpose in
Their
doing
purpose
that?
is, it's very strategic battle lines. So, for instance, I was psychically attacked, and this rarely happens. One year when I was living in Sedona, Arizona, and I went on a business trip, and I was a corporate trainer at the time. So yeah, I balanced a lot of these worlds. And I've
Yeah.
sat with people in corporations actually and said, "Oh, can I tell you something?" And we have a healing right there, and thank goodness. But
Yeah.
yeah, but I came back from this trip, and like you, I felt an attachment. I felt suicidal thoughts coming in my head that I knew were not my own. And so it was so severe enough that I called my healers, and they said, "Hey, it's a coven. It's a coven." And so I asked, Spirit, and I looked around and I said, I did a meditation. I saw a map of light, and it was just the strategic battle map of the United States. And there was a brighter light in Sedona, and someone was going, if we take out this light, then we will have an advantage in this area. So yes, it's
Oh,
like basically checks and balances, right? If there's more of this or less of this.
yeah.
And the thing is that light, of course, is so powerful. So we can light up, I forget what the Heart Math Institute numbers are, but it's something like, 90 square miles or something of each person. We light that up.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah,
have heard
right.
that.
Right. So each of us lights up a certain area. So if I have more light because I've cultivated this, or I've worked at overcoming my blocks, or I'm just more in tune with the angelic realm, then I am going to emit more light. And then so that can make you a target. Yeah.
Wow, okay. And I love in the book too that you give people different tangible things that they can do if they do want to be more attuned, and things like that. I mean, things like not smoking or doing alcohol or drugs, and
Right. Exactly.
um, and I did love when I was flipping through, because I actually put this in my book as well, that you talked about how bad it is for you and your health to engage in news.
Yes.
Um, that was the biggest shift I had ever experienced in my life. Had no idea that it would do that. I just knew I was sick of it. And so because I used to have like MSNBC was like my homepage on the internet, and this has been 5 or 6 years ago now. Actually, yeah, closer to 6, that I stopped doing that, and I stopped Googling it on my phone, or or whatever. If there's somebody on Facebook that posts a lot of things like that, I'll unfollow them. And I'll tell you something, the last 6 years have been the best in my life
See?
ever. And that was the first thing and only thing that people go, yeah, whatever, like, how did that even do anything?
Right.
And I explained in my book too that it's that every time you tune in, like, that's just a realm in and of itself where those kinds of things happen. When you don't tune in, you're not going to see it. My mom was terrified when I decided to move back to Southern California. Um, and I've been down here now for almost 5 years. I have experienced no violence, no crime, no, all of these fires that happen. I don't even know they're happening. Somebody will text me and go, "Hey, you guys doing okay with the fires?" And I'm like, "There's a fire?" I didn't even know, because I'm not, I mean, sure, if it was in the backyard, I would know, but
Right.
I mean, it's just not in my reality because I choose not to have it there. And so I don't see these things. California has been nothing but friendly and beautiful and full of opportunity and stuff. And that's because I don't participate. And I also know that when I do, that I'm feeding it, that
Yes.
I'm creating more of it.
Yes.
Just the
Exactly.
way scientists can't find the edge of the universe, because the very act of looking for it creates more universe. And so if I'm not feeding that energy, it's not going to grow that much bigger. And that for me is my responsibility, in pulling out, kind of thing. So
Absolutely. Absolutely.
yeah.
And that's the whole thing. So what people don't understand about the media and television in particular is that we are frequency. That's all we are. We are
Yes.
frequency. We're nothing but frequency. Atoms vibrating at a certain pace and speed, right?
Yeah.
So TV is broadcasting at a frequency, right? And the frequency, other than their broadcast signal, they're emitting an energetic frequency that is chaos, hatred, confusion, fear, 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 fear. News,
Yeah.
if it bleeds, it leads, right? I was in the media. If it bleeds, it leads. So the whole purpose of the media is to, and I actually call them terrorists because they get paid to keep you afraid. And the
Yes.
reason you tune in is because you're afraid, right? What do I need to know? What do I need to be prepared for?
Yeah, I don't want to be out of the loop.
Right,
That's what my mom
right.
would tell me. Well, what if you don't, and I said, here's a thought for you. Maybe if I don't see it and I don't know it and I don't believe it, maybe that's not in my reality. Like, if
Yeah,
there's nothing I could find on the news that's of any benefit in any sort of discussion with anybody anywhere. And so it's
exactly.
like, yeah, what is
Right.
the point? And for people that go, well, I don't feel scared when I watch the news, or whatever, I'm like, you're in trouble. If you've become completely apathetic
Yes,
to the frequency that's coming through in these news stories, they have won. Like they got you.
absolutely, Tony. They have.
If I walk into a place and they, like a commercial, whatever, they've got a TV on, and a lot of them will put the news up there constantly, have CNN on or whatever. I can feel it physically in my body that I'm just like, oh my God, I got to get out of here.
I
Walking
have
into
the
a
same.
pharmacy, same things, being surrounded by all the drugs and the negative energy and frequency I think that is contained in those too. I'm just like, you want to go take a shower, get it off.
You do. When you have a high frequency that's not polluted or contaminated by these things, uh, they do feel foreign and they do feel uncomfortable, and you do have a natural aversion to them. Um,
Yeah,
and so, what people have to understand is that when they tune into these things, they're allowing the negativity to hijack their frequency.
yeah,
So, you're vibrating right now in your own little happy world, right? I'm here in my happy little world, right? And when we enter into the media world, right, it's like they just grab your frequency and then they scramble it, right? That's why people get all anxious when they're watching the news. And
yeah.
the other day, Tiffany likes the news because she grew up in Oklahoma where the weather's constantly trying to kill you. So no, really, really, we had a tornado, an EF5 tornado in 2013 that lost the house and everything. So I've been
Wow.
through a natural
Oh,
disaster. But anyway, so I understand her need for it. It drives me crazy. I have the same reaction you do. It's like, it just feels like it's just scrambling everything
yeah,
inside.
like you're being assaulted. Yes.
Exactly. Yes. By
Yeah,
negativity. Right. And so
yeah,
people just need to understand that. And I made the comment the other day. She had the TV on just for a couple minutes and something popped up and I was instantly upset and angry because it was something that I don't agree with that's happening in our world right now.
yeah,
And I told her, I said, the dogs probably think we're crazy. Everybody's going along fine. We look up at the screen and then all of a sudden we're angry. Right.
yeah,
So I think people really need to step back and say, how angry or powerless or afraid did I feel before I watched this or tuned into this?
yeah.
And how am I feeling right now? Because it is literally scrambling your frequency, and that is absolutely on purpose.
Well, and if you don't think it's doing anything, go a week without it. Go a week without watching any news media whatsoever, and then try to watch it again and
Yes,
um, see
yes.
how you feel then. Because yeah, I think that they would definitely see that difference then. And yeah, my husband one day, I remember this was probably a couple of years ago, was in the living room watching TV. I came down in the kitchen and I stopped dead and looked over, and it was some political stuff on the television, and I just looked at him and he just started laughing like he just wanted to see how quick. I'm like, turn it off, turn it off. Like that's an
I,
agreement we have actually in our house, is that we don't have, and he doesn't want to watch it either. We're both, thank goodness, on the same page. So he doesn't want to watch it either because he understands what it's about, and and stuff like that. So yeah, we just don't participate in that kind of thing. So
and that's really
um
smart. And the other thing that people have a hard time with, people always ask me, how can you do this? How can you reach these realms? Why do angels decide to talk to you? And the biggest reason for it, honestly, is that I've been sober for 35 years.
oh,
So,
okay.
and I quit, and I haven't smoked cigarettes for 36 years. So, or 34 anyway.
So that's a big thing then.
There's a reason why the spiritual people are the aesthetic, the what is that word, aesthetic or something like that. It's that they have to live a clean life. You
Okay.
can't participate in negativity. You can't put chemicals in your body. You can't smoke. You can't drink. You can't smoke pot. You can't
Yeah.
abuse prescription pills, because it clouds the channel. It just
Right.
clouds the channel. And that's a commitment that not a lot of people are willing to make. But
Yeah.
I have had people who've come to me because of addictions, and we were able to actually instantly release them because the cause of it was not actually physically in the body. It was a spiritual type of addiction, which happens with people too. But that's the thing. If you want to people, you know, you said, what do I want people to come home with? If you want to increase your spiritual life, if you want to raise your vibration, if you want to be more in communion with higher beings and angels and love and God, clean up your act, because that's the only way you can get there. The channel
Okay.
has to be clean, because, and after I do clearings on people, I always tell them, don't do any type of chemicals for 3 days, because if you do, it will completely fry the energy, because that's what those chemicals do. They're of such a dense and harsh vibration that when you're attuned to an angelic frequency or something that's very high, a lot of love energy, it just literally fries it. And I had a client call me and say, I slipped and had a glass of wine, and boy, I could feel my system just go, she said, I
Oh,
have to do it all over again. And I said, that's why I tell you, don't do it. So,
yeah. And how do you, after you do give somebody a reading and get them all cleared up, or even for somebody that feels like they're good, but they want to stay that way, how would you suggest that people protect themselves?
well, one of the things I really talk about in the book is called Zuya, and that's zip up your aura. There's
Oh,
a
yeah.
fabulous story in the book called Josh and the Dragons, and it's an amazing story about an artist and what happened to him and what we cleared in him. But the biggest thing is, you know, you're in charge of your energy field, right? And that's the other
Yes.
thing too. Like when we go in bars, we don't think that we're going to collect anything. When I was 18, I walked into a bar and I saw 3 spirits hovering over the bar. And one was the spirit of lust, one was the spirit of alcoholism, and the other one was the spirit of greed. And
And they're
I
just sitting up there just waiting.
exactly,
Like,
actually, they really, really
yeah,
are.
just like to feed. Yeah.
Exactly, to attach. And so, and this is another thing I always tell people: before you go to a spiritual event, close your aura, because if there's a whole buffet of people walking around saying, I'm open, these cosmic forces are like, yeah, banquet, buddy, all you can eat buffet. Let's get down there right now, right? There's thousands of people. Let's do it,
Oh
right?
my gosh. Yeah.
It's so
Yeah.
true. The book has
Yeah.
several stories.
Victim here.
Right. The book has several stories of people that I had to clear after they went to spiritual gatherings. So
Wow.
it's,
Yeah. And they think they're safe
they think they're
because that's
safe
where they're at. Yeah.
because we don't think that there's any other world out there other than the
Yeah.
one we can see. But there is. There's
Or
many
that
more.
if they're going to a place that is supposed to be filled with people in this industry that are nothing but love and light,
Right.
that
Right.
they're totally safe.
Because we don't know
And
that there's beings that are supernatural that are not of love and light that are there. Or just,
yeah.
they're not necessarily all evil either. They're just cosmic marauders. You know, they're just floating around trying to find some fun. So,
Yeah.
yes, the
Just
biggest
wreaking
thing is,
havoc.
right, right. Biggest thing is close your aura.
Okay.
So take control of your energy. And that's one of the main messages of the book. Take control of your emotional energy. Take control of your energetic space, right?
Yes.
Come to me or someone else and make sure that your chakras are clear. Now, the type of chakra clearing I do is much more intense than what most people do, because I actually walk into your energetic space and see what's there and clean it out with the angels. But either way, you know, pay attention to your chakras, because this is where your energy is flowing. Okay. Secondly, knowing how to close your aura is integral. It's basically first aid, you know, the way we live. So what you do there is you basically draw in some cosmic light, right? So we can just do this together. Draw in some cosmic light. And as you do that, see that light filling you up, and definitely say that it has to be divine light.
Okay.
It has to be divine light, because again, we have cosmic marauders that say, oh, I want white light. Well, they emit white light, but it's not divine light. Okay, there's a
Okay.
lot of ET interference in our world right now at a very disturbing level. And they're good at masquerading, right? So we have to be careful. So just the signs say, I want divine light coming to me, divine help. And so you get filled with this golden divine light, and then you see yourself ensconced in a bubble, right? So you basically have to zoom out, see yourself zoomed out like Google Zoom, and you're inside this bubble of protection. And then you give the command, I close my aura to anything but my highest good. I close my
Okay.
aura to anything but my highest good. You say this 3 times. I close my aura to anything but my highest good. And don't go anywhere. Don't go out of your house until you've zipped up your aura.
Yeah. Okay.
It's just a
Good.
basic
Good.
thing.
Good tips.
Yeah.
My husband and I used to love to go. He's always loved it more than me, but to go to Vegas and go Fremont Street. And if anybody's ever been there, it's like, I mean, there's casinos, but there's like a street, but it's kind of blocked off, and you can walk around, and there's people out there doing their little sideshow stuff and selling T-shirts, and they have bands, live bands playing and stuff like that. And my husband just loved being out with all of these people, and and having a drink and and just mingling and listening to the music, and he just loved it. And he couldn't understand why every time we would go, at a certain point, I was like, I got to get out of here.
Right.
I'm not a drinker, so I mean, I like to have a drink every now and then, but I don't drink. Somebody
I'm
wants
so
out.
sorry. This is so unprofessional. She insisted on being in here with me. I'm sorry.
But it's so real.
Right, it is.
So anyway, I would feel there were so many people
Yes.
of all different energies and backgrounds, and some of them were drunk and some of them weren't, and some people had their
Yes.
kids out in strollers and stuff like that. But I would get bombarded, and I would feel like my energy was just drained, and the
Yes.
music from the bands that were playing the bass, some people are just like, yeah, and they can feel it, and they're dancing and stuff like that, and I feel like I'm being hit. Like,
Yes.
I feel like I'm being assaulted by the vibration. Like, it does not feel good in my
Right.
body, and I would
Yes.
like go into the casino back to where I couldn't hear
Yes.
any of the music anymore, and I would get hot. Like, I would start getting warm, and I hate getting hot. I hate exercising, anything that makes me sweaty. Like, I'm like, ugh.
Right.
And anyway, so we finally just decided, I'm like, look, if you enjoy that, please go do it. Go be with your family, have a good time or whatever. But it's not my thing. And it can't be fun for him if I'm just sitting there going, yeah, are we done yet? Like,
Right. No,
so
exactly. And see, the symptoms that you're having are of a person whose energy is very high. But this happens to people everywhere. So yeah, anytime you're in a crowd, close that aura. Before you go into a spiritual bookstore, close your aura. Before you go to
oh, I
any
had not
place,
thought
before
of
you go to
that.
Costco, close your aura.
So basically, just before you leave the house.
Exactly. Just yeah. And this couple in the book, they have a sign by the front door, Zuya, zip up your aura, before they go
Yeah.
out for the day.
Well, so
Yeah.
I would assume if you have to do this every time you leave the house, I mean, is there like a time limit on how long it lasts when you zip it up? Because at some point, like, does it all just like fall off, And so you got to do it again.
It pretty much, yeah, like daily practice is a good thing.
Okay.
Or if you're going to be around a lot of crowds, maybe, multiple times during that
Just
day.
for extra protection. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes total sense.
I had a guy, there's a story in the book, I was at an awareness expo, and the head of the producer came to get me at 9:00 at night. And he says, you're the one, I need you. And I said, what are we doing? And he said, I need you to heal my friend. And I said, I haven't done any hands-on healing in years. He says, nope, you're the one. Spirit told me, come on. So he drags me down the hallway, and he puts me in this room, and this guy's laying on a bed, and he's got a fever, and his throat is all swollen. And he says, heal him. I said, well, now wait a minute.
Just like that.
Just like that. And so I walked over to the guy, and I closed my aura.
Yeah.
And a lovely guy named Raphael. And so he had a fever. This guy's really hot, but what ended up happening was he was right. I was the one to heal him because he didn't have a physical ailment. What happened was he came into the spiritual expo without closing his aura. His wife, then he developed the symptoms of a throat infection, which he gets about 3 times a year. Okay. So exact same, can't talk, throat swollen, fever, feel terrible. This is a physical illness, he thought, right? Had all the symptoms of it. When I came in and looked at him, he had little like worm things, like, phantom worms, energy things that were attached to him and other things around him. And so as I pulled these out of his aura and worked on him, in 30 minutes, he got up and he was fine. And there's a testimonial on my website, I think, from him and his stories in the book. And he couldn't believe it. I mean, his voice came back completely. During that time, Archangel Michael helped him with a long-standing issue about standing up for himself. And he was totally healed. But yet he was convinced, and a doctor would say, you got a throat infection, right? but yet it was because he had come into a spiritual environment, what he didn't know was a feeding ground, and hadn't zipped up his aura.
Okay. So before we go any further, please tell everybody what it is that you offer as far as if people are interested, and I know they're going to be interested, fascinated, everything after listening to you is what do you offer as far as healings and clearings and things like that?
Sure. Well, I do intuitive work. So, you can come to me and get an intuitive reading with me on issues in your life. I also am the author of the career cards, as I'm sure you talked about. So we can use that oracle to help you figure out what's going on in your life or in issues that you're having. And then I also do kind of the soul clearing work. So an angelic soul clearing is what the book is about. And that's where I do an in-depth look at your system. I'll go inside each of your energy centers. I'll look around you. I'll identify childhood traumas that have things attached to them. It's a profound process, and people are deeply moved by it because the angels are present. And so I'm able to say, the angels say, what happened to you when you were 4? And they'll remember a trauma. And then the angels will tell me, well, this is what happened as a result of that. And so a lot of people get attachments, or as we call them, occupation, which is just sort of a bunch of gunk that attaches to you as a part of just being on this earth. And we're able to clear that out. So we're able to remove huge things like decades of resentment, sexual abuse trauma, abandonment issues, things that many other healers and therapists have not been able to get rid of. So usually people call me, it's because they've had a long-standing issue. They've spent thousands of dollars on every other type of healing, and they just don't go deep enough, or they don't have the team of angels that I have to see what I see. I have a special type of sight to see what is hidden. And so that's what people get with me. If you have something that other people haven't been able to figure out, or just something that, you feel like you want to get a tune up and see if everything's okay, if there's something blocking your success, or you want to be more productive or happy.
And you do this distance work as well?
All over the world. I've done over 1,000 readings for people in
and do you do
countries.
So do you do the reading while the person is just like, say, at home laying down, and then contact them after and let them know what you found? Or
no, they do it with me.
Oh, okay.
They do it with me, which is why it's such a profound experience, because there are many traumas and things that we can't let go of unless we know of them consciously, right?
Yeah.
So there's a part of the self that needs to be there to mourn that, or to receive healing about that, or to feel anger about that. And that's why you're with me on this journey. But people, it's about an hour and 15 minutes for a session. And because people are present, they feel the energy shifts. They can see many times what I'm seeing psychically for them. They can feel the angels come in and touch them, or be enveloped in their presence. So it's a real sensory experience. You're not just laying there being really, really bored. Like, you're going to be interacting. I'm going to be bringing you information, and we're going to talk about it together.
Okay. So tell people how they can get a hold of you if they're interested in getting a reading done. How do they get a hold of you? Email address, website, phone number, whatever you want to give.
Absolutely. So if you want to contact me, my website is getrealanswers.com or talkwiththeangels.com. Yeah. And you can also email me at margo@freedbythelight.com or margo@getrealanswers.com.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much. This was so much fun. And I know everybody was going to get so much out of this. And please, everybody, go get this fabulous book. It is full of so much amazing, magical, mystical, but grounded things that is probably going to tie a lot of things together that you might have been wondering about, because I know that's what it's done for me. So thank you again, Margo, so much. And have a Merry Christmas.
You too. Absolutely.
And Merry Christmas to everybody else out there. And a wonderful new year from Tony Vaughn here at Outside the Box on Xpnsion Network.